Walking down these empty streets, echoes of the past I meet, lost and wandering for so long, searching for where I belong. Sunrise breaking through the night, guiding me back to the light. Every step feels like a prayer, promises hang in the air. Come back home, heal your heart, where the love never parts. Come back home, find your peace. In this place, your pain will cease. Memories of laughter and tears, answers to my deepest fears. In these walls I find my truth, washing away the years. Ruth, oh, the road was long and rough, but my spirit's had enough. Here in the sanctuary, healing feels extraordinary. Come back home, heal your heart, where the love never parts. Come back home, find your peace. In this place, your pain will cease.
Yo, welcome to the Dear Brother Podcast, my evening show. This is Dear Brother Podcast, the interview. I'm really excited about tonight, everybody. I'm excited, number one, about the subject. The subject is dealing with manhood and mental health. And I think it's I know it's a very important topic. I think a lot of us have hidden our pain, and I think another thing is sometimes we falsely define mental health, you don't have to be, I think we point at what we think mental health looks like, or we point at what we think the struggle of mental health is. And in all reality, I think all of us need clarity of mind, and you never know how fast you can go down that space of mental illness. And this is a very important topic, man, because we see it, right? I was talking about the statistics the other in my morning show this morning. I do a morning show, brothers, at 6 a.m. every morning. While you're putting your boots on, getting ready to work, hang on to the morning show every morning at 6 a.m. But I was talking about in there the battles that men have that we hide, and also the battles we have that there's a stigma that says, look, don't say nothing about that. Don't say nothing about your pain. The reality is we all have things. I buried my mother, my father, and my daughter, and eulogized all three of them in 5 years. That's trauma, right? And I think part of me even doing those funerals was so I didn't have to deal with the trauma of losing my family, right? So that's not a heroic move. It's not a heroic move to carry a battle that you can get help with, right? And believe this, guys, sometimes some of us say, look, I just get through it, right? You can carry a book bag that's 5 pounds, carry it for 30 miles and see how it seems light in the beginning, but you carry that book bag for 30 miles and you'll see just how heavy it becomes. Brothers, don't live a life where you're carrying something that's unnecessary. There's help there. In fact, on my website, christianwinners.com, I had a problem before and I was looking for help and I didn't have the money to pay nobody to help me. And it broke my heart. You know what it said to me? No man that needs help should ever have to be in a situation where he needs the help but doesn't have the money to get help. I do donation-based counseling for men. christianwinners.com. You can set up your interview. I'm sorry about that. You can set up your, schedule your time tonight. Schedule it. Go on christianwinners.com right now. Schedule your time. Set it up. Let's talk. I got a great guest, man. I've been knowing this guy since 1993. His name is Coli Sylla. He's a filmmaker. He went to school up in Emerson College in Boston. We had great times going to visit him after we graduated undergrad. I've seen this guy battle. I've seen this guy battle for his life. I've seen this guy battle for his family's life. Then I saw him battle. Then I saw him get married. I saw him create his gift. I saw him struggle. But one thing I saw this guy never do, he never let go of the hopes that was in his heart. Just because you have a battle doesn't mean you have to give it up. I want to welcome my friend, the filmmaker, the writer, the brilliant writer. His name is Coli Sylla. Coli,
Yo,
thanks for
yo,
being with me, my brother.
thank you for having me. I'm glad
Hey, my
glad to be
man.
here, man.
Hey, thanks for coming. How things been going, man? I know you gotta. Well, we gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about the film and stuff. But let's start right there. Where
hmm
you at right now in life? I know you're creating right now. You're creating something spectacular, and you're creating something from your own process. So tell
Right.
tell me about that. How'd you get there to even be able to share this process with other people?
Okay. Yeah. Right now, I'm in what they affectionately refer to as pre-production on a film that's set to shoot in May of 2025. And so what that means is I meet with the production team on a fairly often basis, and we go over our different things we need to take care of. The
Mm-hmm.
film is called F31.9,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I gave it that title is because it's a title that makes people, the first thing people say is, what does that mean?
Right.
Or they go to Google. And so when
Right.
you do go to Google, or when you
Mm-hmm.
do ask what that means, it is the official diagnostic code for bipolar disorder unspecified.
Okay.
Now, I could have called the film bipolar, but that's very general and it kind of answers a lot of questions. But when I say F31.9,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one of those, it's a conversation starter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the funny thing is, man, this film was born out of a conversation that I was having with a literary manager in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about my own personal mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and he just went off on me, and he was like, keep that mental health sh blank 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 to yourself.
Mm.
And it was extremely hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely disappointing because this was somebody that I looked up to and somebody that I had worked with for years.
Mm-hmm.
It was really disheartening. And I said to myself, at the time I was in a screenwriting fellowship, and I had mentioned it to the group, and one of the instructors told me to lean into that. Like,
Mm.
don't not talk about who you are. It's not the total, like, it's not totally who I am, but it's a major part of me. And so I decided to take the reins. I don't know if many people know that the television industry, the film industry, is in a great state of flux right now,
Mm-hmm.
and streamers are taking over. The studios don't necessarily what to do, and they're laying off in droves, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of running around with like chickens with their heads cut off. And so
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go the independent route, and so I wrote this film called F31.9, which is loosely based on my own diagnoses, because I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 in 2016. I may have that year wrong. In 2015, 2016.
Let me
Um,
ask you something right quick.
yeah.
Since we on that subject and since we got these viewers, what exactly what is bipolar? And what is bipolar two? You mentioned bipolar two. What are like? How does that affect you?
Okay. So bipolar 1, basically bipolar is, if I can do it in like layman's terms, it is
Mm-hmm.
it is basically the balance between two polar opposites, two poles. There's one which is mania, which is the manic behavior, and
Okay.
then there's the other side, which is the depressive behavior. And so in bipolar 1, you have a manifestation of the manic side of it, which is essentially hypersexuality, impulsive spending,
Mm,
grandiose ideas. Some people experience psychosis. Some people experience psychotic breaks. It is just, there's a lack of need for sleep, and it is just a
mm,
constant engine of, I can do all of these things without any rational thinking. And so with bipolar 2, the phase is called hypomania, where you still see that decreased need for sleep. You still have the grandiose ideas that aren't necessarily set in reality. You
mm-hmm,
still have the hypersexuality, but it doesn't tend to last as long or happen as frequently as with someone with bipolar 1.
mm.
People with bipolar 2 tend to lean in and spend most of their time in a depressive state. And
Okay.
so for me, I joke all the time, even with my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm depressed all of the time. Like
Mm.
there is no, I wake up depressed, I go to work depressed, and part of the word depressed, you have to kind of destigmatize depressed. For
Mm-hmm.
some, depression is a feeling of hopelessness. It's that
Okay.
feeling where you don't want to get out of the bed, where you
Yeah.
don't really want to do anything, you don't have any motivation to do anything. And what it looks like for me is because I've been living with depression for so long,
Mm.
is I'm on a medication regimen. I have coping skills that I just employ that are just come second nature to me. I
Mm-hmm.
have a therapist. I have a psychiatrist. And it's funny. I have my grab bag of medications that I keep with me at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one. I have, and I learned this in my screenwriting fellowship. One of my cohorts, one of the members of my cohort, she jokingly said, I have a cocktail of mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say that I have a cocktail of mental health issues. My full diagnosis is ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
post traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and
Mm-hmm.
bipolar 2, leaning more towards depression. And so and I don't want to get too long winded, but
Yeah.
here's the kicker. And you were present when this happened, but when Troy died, it
Mm-hmm.
sent me into a state of it was a very traumatic experience. And that's where I received the diagnosis of depression and post traumatic stress disorder. Because what happened is when it happened, my body disassociated from my emotions.
So
And
let's talk about,
okay.
for the audience, let's talk about who Troy was, and why do you think in that moment that kicked you over?
Okay.
I mean, we were there. I remember you guys calling me. Troy died on the basketball court, or collapsed on the basketball court. I think it was a Sunday night.
Yep.
I was
Right after
rushing back.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, I was rushing back, and you guys called me. I went straight to Chester County Hospital,
Yep.
walked in that room, and we seen our man laying dead
Yep.
on the table. Um,
And he died in my arms.
so what happened to you from your perspective, not from a doctor's, but what do you believe after the work you've done to revisit that time? What would you say happened in that moment to you?
My body, my mind and my body went into protective mode because it was something. Trauma is basically you're going to, and this isn't the doctor term, but
Yeah.
trauma is basically you're going along on your own sweet merry way, and something happens that shocks your system. And so for me, his death and me trying to pick him up, Troy was very heavy, and me trying to pick him up and thinking that I felt a pulse, but it was really my pulse that I was feeling
Mm-hmm.
through him because I was breathing so hard and my heart was beating so hard. And so basically my body went into protect mode. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to go into protect mode, you have to cut yourself off from your emotions because your emotions cause you to feel, your emotions cause you to react, your emotions cause you to make decisions. And at the time, because it was a traumatic event, my body said, we're not doing any of those things. We're just going to be there. And I remember the EMT driver was like, well, you seem to be the most calmest. Why don't you ride in the ambulance?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember riding in the ambulance, and anybody who's ridden an ambulance before, in the passenger side,
Mm-hmm.
the reason those lights blink red and blue so fast is because it actually looks like you're going in slow motion. So as fast as they're going with those beacon lights blinking the way they do, it
Mm-hmm.
looks like you're going in slow motion. And so
Wow.
that it just seemed like a ride forever. And so my body just went into protection mode, and it's 2024 and my body has not released me from protection mode.
So that brings me to my question, my next question then. When did you really first start realizing that you were struggling with the mental health issue? Like when did it hit you in a way of, okay, something more is wrong, not just in the moment, but
Right,
something more is wrong? And how did you initially when did you see it, and then how did you initially cope with it, if you did cope with it?
right, yeah. And you'll find for the listeners, you'll find that I'll be saying this a lot because Chris and I go so far back. But
Mm-hmm.
again, you were there for that. I don't know if you remember my 11th grade year, I tore my meniscus and I had to have knee surgery.
Yes.
And coming back my senior year, I had put on some weight But it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just that. I had suffered a concussion towards the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And going into senior year, I just I didn't know what it was, but I knew something about me was off. I was not the same person. And like I said, at the time, I didn't have the language, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But something was off, and it began to manifest more so when I got into college. And then with Troy's death, it just exacerbated it and blew it out the park.
So that's the thing, and I think for the audience, that's a major thing that we talked about Troy's death and the kind of the kicker, right?
Hmm.
But what I've learned about myself and counseling other people, and you can attest to this, is that sometimes what we think the kicker was the beginning,
Hmm.
and really it was the wood and the paper been laying there waiting to burn for years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And then the thing that we think is the thing that kicked us off is really just it was just a spark that really allowed us to know that you got a whole lot of stuff here burning. Right.
Yep.
So we graduated high school in 97.
Yeah.
So our senior year in 97, that's when it really started kicking.
That's when I started realizing that something was wrong, that something was going on. I didn't, and I mean, you know how we were in high school. Everything was a joke. We took nothing seriously. We
Right.
went to recruiting trips just for the food. Had no desire to play football in college. But
Mm-hmm.
when my senior year hit, stuff just it felt different. And granted, I was going through stuff with my dad because my dad was still living in Africa, and I had been begging him to move back to the United States. So that's even more drama. And it just like it something did not feel right, and I actually attribute it to the level of concussions that I felt. And I'm just going to pivot for 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, we had two teammates who have taken their own lives.
Yes.
And I don't know the reasoning behind that, but I will go so far as to say that a lot of it had to do with concussions, because we were in the public league. We didn't have the best equipment. And there was this phrase with football called when you bring that wood. And that means when you hit somebody, you hit them with the intent of letting them know that I play for Germantown.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
not playing any games with you.
Now let me ask you something. In that thought of bring that wood, right?
Mhm.
Meaning no matter what, you keep going, you bring that pain, you go. Do
Yeah.
you think there's a lot of men that live like that in life? Like we live like that on the football field. Do you
Right.
think a lot of men are like that in life? Put your head down and you keep on ramming into problems, and it's the concussion that, right? There's a different kind of concussion, an emotional concussion. How many guys you think out there are already slammed and they just haven't recognized it yet?
I would venture to say, and I don't know statistically, but
Right.
I would venture to say a lot. In doing this film, one of the things I learned is that Black men are at the highest rate of not seeking mental help. They go through this there's this push through mentality, whereas I don't have time to see a therapist, or I don't have time to really invest in my mental health the way that people think I
Right.
should. And also, there's still a stigma. It's still stigmatized. People see, mental health as a weakness,
Right.
as something that doesn't make you a man, because men push through, and men are built to battle it out. But
Yeah.
one thing about that manhood thing is we carry armor around because we have outside forces that are attacking us daily.
Mm-hmm.
And when you keep that armor on 24/7,
Yeah.
it weighs you down.
Absolutely.
One of the things I always say is you're supposed to take that armor off when you get in the house
Yeah.
or when you get in your therapist's office.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So if I don't have a house or a home, I got somewhere to stay, but I don't have a home and I don't have a therapist, then the question becomes, what do I do with this armor? I end up going to bed with it. I end up in the shower with it, right? I take it to
Yep.
work, right?
Yep.
And it becomes heavier and heavier and heavier. Let me get into this because I want to be able to cover, man, goodness gracious, we had to do a part 2.
I'm down with it.
Let me ask you this. Let's get into this because you're a new dad.
Right.
You're a new dad. Talk to me about Idris. Talk to me about Idris. Talk to me how his birth makes you feel. How old is he now? He
He's
just turned
16
1, right?
months. Yeah,
16
16
months.
months. Yeah.
So it's been a year now as a new father, a filmmaker, a writer, a new husband. What's it been 2 years since you've been married?
3.
3 years. Goodness
Yeah.
gracious. 3 years since you've been married. New husband, new dad, writing and producing a film. What's all that like here? As you've carried yourself, now it's like I'm carrying my bride and a new baby boy. Like, so what's all that? How do you manage all that?
So there's this practice in therapy called EMDR, and what that I can't tell you what it stands for. I used to know, but I can't recall offhand. But EMDR therapy, it sort of teaches you to compartmentalize and put thoughts and feelings in certain places, and find safe people that you can always go back to mentally.
Right.
But in terms of overall, I remember when he was first born,
Mm-hmm.
I just remember being stricken with fear, not just because I was a new dad, but because I was so afraid that my mental health diagnoses would visit him, would come down on him, and then I had to realize that I need to be it wasn't about me anymore. I needed to be a model of a man that experiences anxiety and deals with trauma. But I have to be a model of how to handle and cope with that trauma. And I'll give you a
Yes.
perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get too deep, but I'll give you a perfect example. Is in addition to the trauma that I experienced just with Troy's death, I also experienced trauma growing up. And
Okay.
so I'm very particular about people touching me and the way they touch me. My body does not know the difference between a 16-month-old touching me on the shoulder or a 45-year-old touching me on the shoulder. So if
Okay.
I'm relaxing, or if I'm sleeping, or if I'm just lounging and my son, who craves physical contact, just happens to put his arm on my shoulder, my body reacts like, yo, get off me. But then my mind is like, that's your son. He's only 16 months old, and he just is craving physical contact.
Yes.
But the body does not know the difference. All the body knows how to do is either protect you or let you do what you have to do. And trauma is when the body protects you, and doesn't let you go. There's a saying that there's a book called oh my God, it leaves me. The body keeps the score.
Oh yes, yes. I heard
Um,
about that book. Yes.
yeah, and so the body trauma stays within the body, and
Yeah.
so like I said, I'm very particular about the way I'm touched, who touches me,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's stuff like that. It's stuff like anxiety. Like, I struggle with profound anxiety. I don't like road trips. I don't like flying. I don't like. I mean, I'll do it if I have to,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to realize that it's not about me, and I have to learn to cope through those things. And I also, it stops with me. It absolutely stops with me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in addition, and to get back to your question, so
Mm-hmm.
so the blessing about being a father, being a creative, being a writer, being a husband,
Mm-hmm.
that it gave my life structure. So
Mm.
between 3 a.m. and 8 a.m., I'm up writing and handling film business.
Mm-hmm.
8 a.m. to 2 p.m., I'm working. From 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., I'm either writing or handling writing business. Then I go
Mm-hmm.
back to work from 3 to 5. And then I watch my son for the rest of the evening. And then usually that consists of, like, even now, I'm going through, I'm selecting music. I have somebody that's going to score the project, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically lay down the soundtrack. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also listening and fielding music, and I've listened to well over 200 songs. Just looking for the theme, just looking for what I feel like fits the narrative of what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So, having a family, like, I actually gave up on writing, and it wasn't until I was driving down 73 in Jersey one day, and
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from a director who was like, "Yo, I got this script. It's one of Kevin Hart's comedians is
Mm-hmm.
looking to go on his solo route, and we want you to write it." And I was like, "No, I'm cool. Like I'm a married man now. I
Mm-hmm.
got me a little place in Jersey. I
Mm-hmm.
drive my little Subaru. I'm, you know what I
You
mean?
made it.
I don't need anything. I grill
Right.
every now and then. I
Right.
get me a slab of ribs and
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. But he
Mm-hmm.
convinced me to do it, and I did it. And then more and more opportunities came, and more doors opened. I
Mm-hmm.
wound up winning a screenplay contest, which gave me a nice chunk of change. I signed two development deals, and then the writer's strike hit. And so my
Yeah. Let me ask you this:
uh-huh.
dealing with all you dealt with,
Hmm.
how does success feel? Like when you're writing those scripts or selling those scripts and things are coming together, and like now you got the actresses and actress, the production team, and things are coming together. When you look back and you look at where you were, how does that success feel on you? Or how does it feel? Or is it a battle in your mind about accepting that success? Or are you able to dive into it because you see how far you've come?
There's and I may even have to flip this and ask you, but there's this divide
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel in my heart there's this divide that God has given me. I can never experience my own. There's a gap. I can't experience. I don't know what my success feels like. I can't experience success, meaning there's this gap. I'm always chasing success, but I
Mm-hmm.
could never catch it. I could
I
never
get that.
feel it.
I
And
get that.
so it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna write this script. I've seen the movie in my head. I'm gonna write this script. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
send it out for coverage. It's gonna get traction, but I don't feel anything. When I won the screenplay contest, it was great. It was amazing. It was exciting, but I didn't feel anything. And so it's something that I've been really trying to really study and understand that it's not so I can go on and on about this. Here's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
I chase dopamine. Anything that's going to give me a dopamine boost, whether it's my ADHD meds, I chase dopamine. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no greater high than writing a script that you knocked out of the park because you get a dopamine release. And it's like, oh, I want another one. I'm going to write another script. Oh, I want another one. I'm going to write another script.
So when people are chasing, when men are out here chasing, sometimes we call it ambition, and
Hmm.
I believe that sometimes it is. Could it also be a dissatisfaction where they can't feel success, so they're constantly chasing the feeling, even though they don't know what it feels like? But the chase feels better than, I guess, just sitting there.
The chase feels better than sitting there at times. There are feelings of, now I may not be able to feel success, but I can feel accomplishment
Okay.
when I sit down. It's nothing for me to sit down and write 130-page screenplay.
Let
Uh,
me ask you though. Let me ask you that. You said something brilliant there. You can feel accomplished, but not feel success. What's the difference?
Accomplished is, and I talked about this on my blog not my blog, my email newsletter the other
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people say when they set out, they want to be the greatest. I'm going to be the greatest storyteller. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be the greatest boxer. I'm going to be the greatest. And for me, one of the things that you set yourself up for failure when you set out to be the greatest. Just
Mm.
do the thing. Just get in the ring and box. Just write the story. It doesn't have to be great. It's not going to be great, you know. And
Gee.
what happens is when it's not great, you give up. And so
Ah.
for me, once you get into the habit of just doing the thing, you
Yeah.
cannot give up. I am bound to screenwriting. I am bound to directing. I can. It's ingrained in who I am.
Do it
Um,
feel like a trap sometime?
it is
Loving
a
what you, it
it is
is a
a trap.
trap.
It is a
Okay,
trap.
because I feel like I'm in a trap. You know, I do my morning show every morning. I love speaking to these men, lifting these men up. Like I will die on this hill,
Hmm.
but every day it's like a battle, like to do it. As much as I love it, sometimes I feel like an unworthiness.
Oh God.
Right? It feel like an unworthiness that comes over me. And so, like you, I get behind this microphone and I'm good. And it's
Hmm.
not a front. Like I'm healed back here. Like I get behind here and I know there's men on the other side of that screen. I feel healed. But then I know that I'm not really, because it's going to creep up again. I was listening to a DMX interview today with Dr. Phil, old thing, and I was driving, man. I almost like pulled over my car because Dr. Phil asked DMX. He said, "When do you feel healed, or when do you feel best?" He said, "For that hour and a half on stage." He said,
Yeah.
"If I'm not on stage, I cannot find happiness."
Yeah.
And it hit me so hard because I used to be like that as a pastor. It was like I needed the stage, not for the, I never felt like a star, but I was away from my pain on
Right.
that stage, right? It's like a fish in water. You perfect when you work in your stuff,
Right.
right? How did you find a way to find a space of peace and healing away from the pen and the pad?
It's called therapy, and it's called a psychiatrist, and
Okay,
it's called
okay.
medication.
You said you ain't, it ain't happening on your own.
No, you can't do it on your own.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna keep it all the way real with you,
Mm-hmm.
and this is something I haven't even told my wife. I'm not a suicidal person at all,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like God has given me a divine purpose. I feel like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a freedom fighter, and I finally found my voice to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a suicidal person, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say this bipolar battle is so exhausting that I understand why men, women, I understand why they take themselves out, because you're shifting from pole to pole, and it is so exhausting. It is so tiring. Your
Mm-hmm.
mind is so drained
Mm-hmm.
that the only relief that you feel is
Mm-hmm.
eternal sleep. And for
Mm.
me, that's not the case. My
Right.
relief comes in the form of, when we get together at Top Golf, or my
Mm-hmm.
relief comes in the form of just reminiscing. Again, that's more that dopamine release where we
Yeah.
reminisce about picking up the Oskino CD and just breaking it down and deconstructing it.
Yeah.
Or, when you used to take me through North Philly and just
Mm-hmm.
tell stories, like that's dopamine. Those memories are dopamine releases.
Yeah.
And so, um,
So ultimately you need a team to get through this. This is not something you can, this, like, you can decide to be better, but you can't get better on your own.
on
It's
your own, no. And
okay.
let me as Pastor Waller at Enon would say, let me come a little closer to y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get
Mm-hmm.
a little closer. So in the morning when I wake up, I take antidepressant. I take two antipsychotics. I take anxiety medication. I take medication at night for sleep. When I'm not on these things, I get thrown right into a manic state and a hypomanic state. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, if that's not managed, if I don't have a team that's around me, and sometimes my therapist isn't always accessible, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been in therapy for 24 years, so it's like second nature to me.
Mm-hmm.
My psychiatrist isn't always accessible. My wife is a therapist, and so if need be, I can lean on her, but I don't always lean on her,
Yeah.
since that she's my wife, she's not my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have enough coping mechanisms, but I am an advocate for medication balanced with social life. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: my mentor is a he's what they call a showrunner. He's produced shows for CBS. He's actually
Mm-hmm.
working on a show now. He's out in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he told me, he said, Cole, the best way to become a better writer
Mm-hmm.
is to live your life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, me being in a depressive state, I tend to isolate. I tend to not want to be around people. I tend to want to be alone with my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm intentional about being social, when I'm intentional about being around people, I pick up on these stories. I'll give you a perfect example. I was on the phone with a friend of mine,
Hmm.
and she was just talking about her job. And I said to her, I said, "This is a television show." I said, "Can we keep this conversation going?" 2 months later, I signed a TV deal for the exact show.
Hmm.
Not because I'm like the greatest writer or anything like that, but writing
Right.
is second nature. I can write with my eyes closed. I know, what to pack the episode with. I know what the arcs are. I know all of these things, and I write very character driven dramas that are based on in reality, based on real people, based on real situations. I
Mm.
like to tell people I come from the school of David Simon, who is the creator of The Wire, because his dialogue was so natural and so sort of based in reality. But make a long story short, I am I'm bound to writing, but it's not always a pleasant experience. There are times where I don't want to write. There are
Hmm.
times where I don't want to think about writing. There are times where I'm not going to say I wish I wasn't a writer, but there are times where um, I get sort of not regretful, but yeah, I do. I get regretful of the times that I didn't spend with my friends when I should have been socializing and networking and having fun. I was toiling away, getting better at my craft. I mean, the flip side is that I'm an extremely talented writer. Um,
Absolutely.
the downside is that I don't require a social life. I don't like being around people. I will if I have to, but I
Yeah.
prefer not to be.
Right.
I just prefer to fly solo. I prefer just me, myself, and I. But I
Yeah.
have a tight circle of friends. But
Hmm.
it's very. I can count my squad and still have fingers left over.
Right.
I'm happy with that. That's all
Yeah.
I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because eventually you start just entertaining people, and and I want to say that to the audience, that a lot of times these friends, you can measure friendship by the level of how much entertainment you have to do around them.
yeah,
Like, you can really test who's really with you. If you got to be on stage all the time, those people aren't your friend at all, really.
right.
I want to invite with our I'll put the movie back up. If you want to support the movie that Coli is finishing up, is right here on your screen right now on the in the bottom of the screen. You'll see the name of the movie and the Cash App that you can support this film. I mean, this guy is going after it from his own experience, and I want to say to you, Coli, you're incredibly brave, bro. You're incredibly brave. Most people can't speak out of their pain. They can speak afterward, or they just go silent, and not only speak out of it, but to create something out of it. Right? That's major too. When 2 years ago, when I was homeless, living in a parking lot, I wrote "Home Where Hurt Men Heal." You know what I mean? I was living in the car, hungry. You know, loss of 40 pounds with COVID, and all I had was a gallon of water, and I sat back in my seat and just start writing this book on my phone.
Yeah,
So I think what we find is that creative genius sometimes is your savior
yeah.
in the middle of things as well. If anybody has any questions or something they want to ask, it's dear brother the advice you can ask Coley before we have to go about if you have family members, brothers, husbands, friends. If it's you, if you have a question, man, you can put your question up, ask your question,
Yeah.
because we're trying to help people. Um,
I
we
do
do have
see in the comments. I'm
yeah.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you. I do see in the comments they
Uh,
said, "I wonder if the disassociation
yep,
from
I got it on
success
the
is
screen
similar."
now.
Okay, it's
You
similar
got it. Yep.
to the disassociation due to the trauma. It's actually one and the same.
Okay.
Um, success. So, as a victim of trauma, there's this chasm that let me get back to your question. What it feels like? Yes, it absolutely feels like the same thing. That
Hmm.
disassociation from success, and that disassociation where you're in a traumatic situation, or you're triggered by a traumatic situation and you can cut yourself off. Um, and so I will say that it's one and the same thing, but the only way I'll sort of pivot and differ from that
Hmm.
is because I believe when it comes to success and creativity, my disassociation honestly is a gift. It's a gift from God. And I know that sounds weird, but if I get success, what do I have to chase?
Mm.
I'm like like if and also my success, if my success doesn't come with the joy, if it doesn't come with the pain, if it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
come with the trauma, if it doesn't come with everything that makes me who I am,
Mm-hmm.
then what is it?
Mm.
And so I'll always be chasing success. And one last thing I'm gonna say is I was having this conversation with my wife
Mm-hmm.
because she asked me, is it, she asked me one day, like, is it hard? Is it hard, being bipolar? Is it hard having
Mm.
ADHD? Is it hard doing all these things on top of everything else you do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, you know what? I don't know if this is right. I don't know if this is accurate, but God gave me the keys to heaven and hell.
Mm.
So, if I want to write from a certain place of darkness, I just go to hell. If I want to write from a place of uplifting and positivity, then I go to heaven. And I'm not talking about in the sense, the
Mm-hmm.
biblical sense that
Yeah.
that I don't know the scripture to, and I'll never lie to you and say that I do. The
Mm-hmm.
heaven and hell I'm talking about is up here, because the hell of the mind will throw you off a building. Um, the
Mm.
heaven of the mind will make you hug your homie and shed some tears, like, bro, I love you. Like,
Mm.
we go way back, and I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so to traffic in both of those places takes a level of strength.
Mm.
Again, you're a vehicle for somebody else that's dealing with that,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be a light. Like, I can't be scared. I'm afraid, but like Nipsey Hussle says, you got to do it scared. It's not easy
Yeah.
to be like, yo, I'm bipolar. Yo, I'm
Yeah.
doing this film about bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not easy. I told my executive producer at 4 o'clock this morning. I said, what in the hell am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
I just needed that quick reminder, like, this is what you're doing. It's like, okay, I bounced back. But for the most part, it's not perfect. It's not.
Yeah.
There's nothing beautiful beautiful about this. It's fulfilling. I don't need beauty. I need fulfillment, because fulfillment will get me up out of my bed.
Mm.
Fulfillment would get me to go to work, because I know at 2 o'clock I'm switching gears and I'm gonna send out these proposals.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with Universal Music Group,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens is people have read this script and they're like, "Yo, I want to be a part of this." And
Mm.
so I happened to run into a gentleman from Universal Music Group, and I was telling him about the project,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to hook me up with some licensing for the film festival circuit, and
Yeah.
also a discounted rate for what they call a blanket license, which will allow me to play it across all platforms. In addition to that, the director of photography, the cinematographer for the film,
Mm-hmm.
was so moved by the script that he essentially told me, once you start your crowdfunding process and you don't hit your goal, if you don't hit your goal,
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about it. I own a finance company, and I may be able to possibly, give you that second half of the balance. But
Absolutely.
we're going to launch a very aggressive crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to blast through our budget,
Mm-hmm.
just keep going.
And you know what, Cole? Those people who said they're attracted to your project is you. That's what they're attracted to.
Yeah,
That's what that's that thinking right there is what should always lift your value. It ain't the film, bro.
yeah.
It's you. Let me do this while we're in our close, because I know you got to go so too. Um, Let me ask you this last question.
Hmm.
What's one piece of advice that you would give the men out there that are trying to balance their mental health, fatherhood, creativity, those guys who are dealing with a multiplicity of things? What piece of advice would you give those men out there that's listening to you tonight to balance all these things?
Build your squad. Get into a therapy situation, and it's not going to be a perfect. You're not going to find. You may, but you're not going to find that perfect therapist. But get in the habit of talking about yourself. Get
Mm-hmm.
in the habit of experiencing vulnerability. One of the
Mm-hmm.
hardest things that we can do as men is be vulnerable. I am somebody that embraces vulnerability. I lead with vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind being vulnerable, because I
Mm-hmm.
know that it helps people in the long run. But Build your team. One of the things I love about Jalen Hurts is his team. You
Mm.
know, he has a team of strong black women who his agent, his lawyer, his business manager, like he has a team around him,
Mm-hmm.
and they will keep you in check. They will keep you straight. I have a team around me. I have somebody that I can call at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have somebody that I can lean on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when I have these certain situations
Right.
and feeling some type of way. So just start building your team. And it's not, and I don't want to get too long winded, but your team is not your homie. Your
Mm-hmm.
homie is your homie.
Mm-hmm.
Your team is a person that is trained in therapeutic practices that can identify and participate in the diagnosis process that you will get when you see a psychiatrist. I mean, honestly, I should say just wait until summer 2025 and just go see F-31.9
There you
because
go.
you'll
It's
see
up on the screen right now.
that
What's the date of the drop?
we're going to drop in summer 2025.
And the crowdfunding is starting in November.
November, yeah, it's going to be heavy in November. We're taking donations now, and I'm shifting the money to the line producer because right now one of our biggest expenses is something. There's a thing called previs, which is
Mm-hmm.
prevision, which is basically the. So I'll be working with the cinematographer where we'll break down the script and we'll
Mm-hmm.
storyboard, and so that software is not cheap, and so we've been starting to collect funds early just so I can be able to get that studio binder software.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, if you want to do a part 2, 3, and 4, I'm
No,
always
we have to do it again, man, because people. I mean, we right now we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and this is one thing we talk to men about every day, you know. And I know a lot of guys need help. Let me put this up, bro. You look, your support is right in the building. This is truly amazing. This is just from Dallas. Needed actors for the project? Let me know. People believing in your work, brother. People
Thank
are
you. I
believing in
appreciate it.
your
And
work, man.
if I
People
can
are
do it,
believing.
if I can do a quick plug, you can go to my website and read more
Please.
about me. It's colisylla.com. That's ColiSylla.com. And I should have put that on that key art if I was
And it's
putting.
right. It's right there in the bottom of the screen as well as your on your Cash App. His name is right there on the bottom.
Okay,
On the
yeah,
scroller right there. Coli Sylla. His last name is first on there, but just reverse it to go see his website, colisylla.com.
yep,
Um, and finally, look, guys, before we close out, listen, visit my website. I'm doing donation-based coaching for men. So we're taking, listen, the world is about capitalism, how much you can take. I'm about human capital. If I have nothing in this world, I want to be able to offer something to men. Go to my website right now. You can schedule your one-on-one. Um, donation based, man. Schedule your one-on-one coaching. I'll be there for you. I have group coaching for group coaches. That's also group coaching men. That's also donation based. I'll come to the trap house. I'll come to the hood. I'll come to the suburbs. I'll come to a school. I'll come wherever you are. I'll come in the gutter because men, I will come where you are. I'm not asking you to come from where you are because you may be stuck there mentally. I'll come where you are and be your brother right where you are. I so appreciate you, Cole. Thanks for
oh
coming to
yeah,
spend time with me,
no
man.
problem, no
Thanks for
problem.
everybody who got on the show on all the platforms to watch, man. This is really cool. This is big, man. Your vulnerability is a blessing, and I'm sure that many people tonight were like moved by the fact that it's a man, a real man in front of them, showing them I can be married, I can raise a baby, I can write films, I could work the LA scene and still manage this thing with the grace of God and the community around you, bro. You're
Yeah,
a brilliant, man. I applaud you. Cheers to Coley.
thank
Man,
you,
God
thank you.
bless you, brother. Listen, everybody. Remember, you matter, man. You matter today. You matter tomorrow. You matter the future. And always remember this, guys. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. All you got is right now. Love yourself right now. Hey, no fear, no shame, no compromise. I love you all. I'll see you all soon. Peace.
Peace.